Hello, everyone. Today is July 28th. This is a SIG Release meeting. It is a meeting that is recorded and available on the internet. So please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, and in general, just be awesome people. So we've got a few items on the agenda today, and they're all tangentially related to 119, I think. First one up is Go 115. So you may have seen chatter in the channel over the past few weeks, or my email yesterday. We are working on building Kubernetes with Go 115. So as of 119, I think we've officially landed a PR on the master branch, and that has been fast forwarded into the 119 branch to build on top of Go 115 RC1. So this is an interesting event for us and kind of a celebratory one, I guess. It's the first time that we have, as far as I know at least, we've consumed a Go pre-release ahead of the actual minor release. There are a variety of reasons for us doing that. Part of it is to keep up with the Go support cycle as we consider the move into annual support for Kubernetes overall. So we want to ensure that Kubernetes is on a version of Go that will continue to be supported for the life cycle of the release. Go 114 was known to have some stability issues. So the suggestion, I think the agreement we landed on was to try to move as quickly as possible to Go 115. That decision will also ripple into the previous release branches. So we're planning on also backporting Go 115 into the 118 and 117 release branches. Again, the reason for this is Go support, right? So the Kubernetes support cycle is a little bit more elongated, and even more so now than the Go support cycle, which means if we go to Go 115, once Go 115 is out and 119 is on that, Go 113 will move out of support. Which means our previous release branches, 118, 117, 116, will be using a version of Go that's no longer supported. So note that I originally mentioned only 118 and 117. The reason for that is as we release Kubernetes 119, we will be turning off support for Kubernetes 116. So the reason for that is that we're kind of in we've been in an elongated release cycle, and it's just about at the 1-year boundary for 116. So we'll be saying goodbye there. And yeah, I think that's the broad overview. Some of the nitty-gritty pieces where we are now able to support pre-releases for Go within repo infra. So if you're familiar with repo infra, it has a set of basal tools and definitions that we use across the Kubernetes orgs. So some example repos would be Kubernetes Release, Kubernetes Test Infra. And I hacked together some support for Go releases, for Go pre-releases. So hopefully moving forward, we'll continue to be on this stream of consuming Go more frequently. And yeah. Any questions on that? All right, so next steps there is a bit of waiting. We've essentially moved both the master and 119 branches, as well as CI images, the Kubekins EDE images, as well as the KRTE, the kind runtime environment images, to run with Go 115 RC1. So once we have a release from upstream Go, and I think that should be roughly, I want to say in a week and change, maybe. I think based on the current release cycles, we'll be ingesting that as quickly as possible to set us up. Where one thing to note is that we're still in code freeze, and looking at the way this affects CI signal as one of the markers for moving out into code thaw. So just something to be aware of. That kind of moves into the next one, Kubernetes 119. Actually, Taylor, yes. Do you want to give an update on 119?
Absolutely. So 119, we delayed code thaw, mostly because we saw a lot of critical, urgent PRs and issues both together, the same. And so we have not lifted code thaw just yet. We are working on getting some of the tests cleaned up, and then a lot of those PRs and issues have been solved, but there still are some that we'd like to get remedied and solved at this time. I know that there are also some test enhancements that are coming. So with tests, you have to declare resources and limits. And so that is going to be kind of the next iteration. I saw there's some chatter from Ben on that front this morning. Looks like they were debugging some issues that they were seeing there. And I think before I went to sleep last night, there were a couple just resource infrastructure issues that they were looking at as well. So that's ongoing right now. Otherwise, 119 is really coming together. Very excited to see the low counts of critical issues and hoping that they vanish soon completely.
Go team.
Woo!
Very nicely done. Okay. And I want to guess that this is Tim. First, any questions on 119? What's happening? What's not happening? Okay, cool. So the next one up is Kubernetes 120. Got that on the list. I feel like that was you, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the team is starting to form and discuss timelines. It's a complicated fall with conferences and virtually conferences and holidays and the completely TBD 119 release date and major changes like Go 1.15 and the CI instability. So things are starting to happen there, forecasting what they might, could, should do. And I guess if anyone on the call or anyone listening to the recording is interested in volunteering for that release team, start paying attention for the call for volunteers and be ready to raise your hand for that.
Where are the conversations currently happening?
That's a good question. So it just sort of popped into my head this weekend. I was like, hey, so I guess first of all, is the release lead for 120 announced yet? I don't think I saw that. Can I announce it? They're not here today.
Yeah, let's hold it. Let's hold it.
So we have a tentative person lined up to be the release lead for 120, and it popped into my head that we're getting to a point where we have line of sight potentially on 119's release, and it starts making sense then to start thinking about getting going on 120, forming the team, and thinking about the calendar since it's complicated. So I just sent a DM to the individual who's our candidate for that over the weekend saying, hey, this popped into my head. And they said, yeah, I'd been thinking about that. Why don't I start getting stuff going this week? So the broader conversation should be happening in SIG Release any day now in the Slack channel, and also then messages out to the mailing list.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, I feel that next week is probably a good time to start. Give us a little extra time moving into 120. So, but yeah, I'm super excited. awesome individual. Can't wait for that to be announced. I think that we have been doing, I think the release team has seeded a bunch of great candidates, great leaders in SIG Release. So I'm excited for the next wave of that.
Normally, one of the things that we try to do is the point that we're getting to code thaw and starting to do cherry picks on the branch to have the next people starting to kind of be present to get some awareness of how that happens, because otherwise people in those roles don't necessarily see it until it's their turn 4 months from now, at which point the current people have started to drift away. So
Yeah.
we usually try to start the next cycle's team as the current one is finishing up, and it's in the lead's handbook to start doing that in the final weeks of the release. This release being an unusual schedule, the final weeks of the release is maybe an ambiguous phrase. I would sort of see it as the final month or so. Like usually these are things that are happening around code freeze and code thaw and cherry pick season on the release branch, and figuring out what we take into the release at the end versus defer to that next team to start handling. So we need a bit of overlap for that kind of transition to happen reasonably with some planning and deliberate thought.
Let me know if I can help with any of that once the person's announced. I mean, that's the sort of thing a program manager would do. Help everyone contribute to building that process. And luckily, we're doing a lot of work already to change some of the groundwork from this cycle, like the improvements that we've identified and have been talking about, which I'll get to later. I'll give you an update. You're mute. Oh no. Meow meow.
Meow meow. I'm actually going to move that one up. So Laura, you want to go for it?
Oh, sure. Let me which one did you move up?
I'm going to move your two.
Oh, okay. So all right. So I guess yeah, this last week we were having our regular sessions, and as we talk in those Monday, Wednesday, Friday meetings, we come up with spontaneous items. And so the question arose, where do we put that stuff? And we didn't really have a specific place to consolidate those questions that come up spontaneously. So I created a GitHub issue for that to track these kinds of items. So just wondering if anyone or everyone has had a chance to take a look at that in the past week, and if you have any thoughts.
Do you want to run through it now?
Oh, we can, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me see, did you share?
I can share with you.
Okay.
Or I can just share. Hold on. Being silly here. Here we go. All right.
Okay.
So quit Slack.
So this
Okay.
is dated from, I think, the Wednesday meeting. So these were the items that I caught up with. So the first one was getting a test in place that would have caught this issue. And this came in the context of the discussions that we're going to be having like today, and then also CI Signal subproject. So it's been on our minds, and this was like the trigger question, I think, that spurred a lot of other discussion.
Yeah, so real quick, this is...
It was done, it seems.
Done, yes. Backward, interesting.
And then here, I think this is messed up my, did it mess up my formatting or not? Okay, yeah, it's a little bit wonky on the formatting. It adds a space, but the next item was actually the bundle of items that Jordan had pitched, which again is in discussion, but we have the CI Pro policy changes, so he created that proposal.
And
we'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah, so I put it on the agenda, and we'll go through it in more detail. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at my formatting here.
It shouldn't
I
have
think
broke. It's just these spaces probably.
yeah.
Let's see.
And then there were some other suggestions to formalize in policy and enforce going forward. So requiring contact info,
Oh no.
list email notifications. The next item.
Sorry, which one?
It's the formalize in policy and enforce going
Okay.
forward, requiring contact info, blah, blah, blah.
So this is something that we were already, should have already been formalized.
Okay.
That, whether or not it's being enforced is a different story. So tests that are on, tests that are within our scope, so basically things that are in config jobs, Kubernetes SIG release, release branch jobs, I think is the path in test infra. Those jobs are supposed to have contact email addresses attached to them. I did a sweep. It's a while back now, and anything that does not have a contact address is listed as, I consider that to be a misconfiguration. And so anything that you see that's on the SIG release job config errors board, it could be one of those, right? So that is relatively up to date, but it'd be worthwhile to give another sweep. We should also, we have some enforcement on the test level, but the enforcement is based on whether or not a job is blocking and what kind of tabs it lands in, but not so much whether or not it has an email address. So this is something that Catherine and I were chatting about a while ago. And the question was, what's the point of having these enforcements if we don't actually, or the warnings, right? So there are some tests that are essentially enforced for some of the blocking jobs. And there are some things that just warn for informing jobs. So the question was, what's the point if no one is paying attention to the fact that, because like those just, that's kind of spit out as a part of the scroll back during pre-submits when we're trying to check for different things. So we should open up an issue for if one doesn't exist already, for kind of sweeping those jobs and making sure that we're enforcing this not just by policy but also by pre-submit.
Okay.
But yeah, this is something that is already supposed to be happening.
Okay, so I've made the notes so that we would like to do that sweep and open the issue. Would anyone here like to do that?
Carlos, I'm gonna Carlos, are you,
yeah,
are you interested in poking at some of this?
yeah, I can try.
Okay.
I'm always interested in new stuff.
Yeah, and maybe work together with Jorge.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so Jorge's worked on the jobs in the past, and I think that it would be good to get another person staring at the way we do the configurations for the jobs.
Okay. So I have noted that now.
Thank you both.
Yeah, I still have to play with this formatting a little bit, but okay, so then we'll keep that open for now, that item. The next one is formalize in policy and enforce stop running jobs that are informing, or is that a typo? Maybe it's non-conforming
No,
and non-blocking.
non-informing. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
So yeah, so we have a set of blocking and informing jobs, right?
Okay.
So anything that's not, I think that this is wider CI, right? Not just SIG release is what it sounds like.
Okay.
Because we have a policy for this. Enforcement is a different question. We're supposed to be dropping things from the boards that are not, that are consistently failing.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the meta issue that Taylor had mentioned right now around resource requests and limits is resourcing. And if we have a bunch of tests that run all the time and fail all the time and nobody's watching or reacting to them, that consumes resources for no benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so ownership, part of this is ownership as well. Opening issues of clear owners, targeting some of the slowest tests. And all of this is the kind of stuff that I would love to see a CI signal project work on.
Okay. So that could be,
mhm.
we could assign it to that project and include it in the scope of the work that the group tackles.
We could, but the group is not formed yet officially.
Right.
So, Jorge, do you want to give an update on that issue?
Yeah. So at least the last things, and I'll add the issue to the actual meeting notes so that people can find them more easily. But last week I proposed a draft charter, which, in my own words, I propose to actually do some of this work. The TLDR is to kind of generalize the CI signal team within the release team to actually do the work that it is done on the latest, not only for the latest minor release, in this case 119, but to generalize it to all the releases that we take care of. A lot of them, besides doing the normal CI signal, doing the normal CI signal work, some of the other work that I propose is on, I'm going to call it a little bit of job management, project management, doing this kind of thing, formalizing policies for job inclusion, maintainership, ownership, while collaborating more with SIGs to make sure that these things are well known throughout the community, and it isn't just one of those things that becomes tribal knowledge. And yeah, so the charter is included in an issue within the SIG release repo, RFC for CI signals project. Right now, the latest round of conversation was on, I'm gonna say it's a
Scope issue.
Scope issue. Essentially, there's there's a little bit of nuance, and this has come up in multiple avenues. So technically, the thing that I think will be useful will be a full-on collaboration with the rest of the community. There is a collaboration to be done with SIG testing on actually improving, on actually working with SIGs to improve jobs, to make sure that things run better. But overall, job and test maintenance of the tools that we use, that will have to be done in collaboration with SIG testing, maintaining the actual end-to-end test that will have to be done in collaboration with the SIGs, and everything else within the CI signals project will be to actually be the one group of people who are actively following up on all the things that are going on, and trying to be a little bit more proactive. Also, which I guess will also include working with SIGs to see what other jobs we could include into informing, blocking what jobs we will actually need to need to get rid of because they are a work in progress, and etc.
Yeah, so we need to figure out how to end this discussion because I think we're spending more time on it than actually doing the thing. And so when I had originally opened this issue, I did mention that somewhere that this was a brain dump of ideas. Or not.
You have to be careful what you wish for, Stephen.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah, this is more of a brain dump than anything, right? So this was not intended to, I think it was construed as overscoped for SIG release, right? What we ultimately want, the first point, is to extend the knowledge of CI signal beyond an individual cycle, right? We want to make sure that we're doing the same things that we do on the CI signal team across multiple release cycles, right? And essentially maintaining the same jobs that we would be for all of the active release branches, right? That is the one thing that I want, right? Anything else is icing on the cake. So if we have to descope to that, I'm fine. Like if this needs to, it's been mentioned that maybe this should be a SIG testing subproject. Ultimately, I don't care outside of the work getting done. I think that because SIG Release has been doing the CI signal work, they should continue to do the CI signal work. I think that's where the expertise is. It has not been, I think it's mentioned in this thread as well, that the debugging someone else's jobs is not in scope for SIG testing, whereas it has been in the past for us. Not to say that it should continue to be in scope for us. We should provide people, along with SIG testing, the tools that they need to work through job failures themselves. But that has been in scope for the team in the past, and I think that it's fine for that to be in scope temporarily for a CI signal subproject. So let's, at some point, maybe we can take this to a SIG testing meeting. There is one today, but we have the CI overall to discuss. So that is Jordan's proposal, which we'll get into shortly.
I have a
Laura?
suggestion. So, I mean, you're sort of doing like a team building exercise or trying to figure out the roles of the different SIGs in the CI signal subproject. So what about trying to sketch the basic
Boundaries,
details about the charter, like spinning up like who might do what, what is the ownership of what we want the subproject to achieve, and trying to just sketch out a plan for that. Inviting members of SIG Sig Testing just to start with, just to put some meat on the bones of the idea, and then also like what is not in scope, and then trying to define some of the interfaces between those SIGs, at least the types of interfaces that will need to be thought of as this sub-project gets going. Like how would people communicate between the SIGs, at what time, who would ultimately own which parts of the work, and then this would give some definition to a lot of these ideas that we've been talking about in the email threads and in the issue.
I agree, but I think that exists already. It's
the
CI signal.
Okay.
It's the CI signal handbook, right? So just multiply that by all of the release cycles that we support, right?
Okay.
And that would be the base case for what this subproject would be doing.
Okay.
So I think that I think that we've had more than enough discussion on this. Maybe we need to take it to a SIG testing meeting. But I also don't believe that as long as we develop a sub-project that is out of scope for another SIG, I don't believe another SIG should dictate the formation of a sub-project.
No, that's why it would be a collaborative discussion,
Yeah.
like getting the foundational part sorted and agreed upon by the main SIGs that would be contributing and driving this effort. To start with, I mean, ideally you want to have this CI awareness in all the SIGs, but you'll have a core group at first.
So I'm staring at the proposed charter that I posted in there, and the main comments that Ben. So I guess summarizing the state of the discussion, and I might be missing some details, but the first couple of comments from the SIG testing area is that we in the comments we were proposing to actually take some of the work that is done by SIG testing, like ownership of how to actually manage some end-to-end tests, how to write some tooling. That was the first part. That was the first part of the conversation, and more or less it all circled around of just discussing what is actually in scope, what is in scope. From the proposed charter that I last posted, I guess the one aspect of it that I was overreaching, because we do this every now and then in a kind of project management kind of deal, not on actually working on it, is on doing CI signal for the pre-submit test, which is actually where where the people from SIG testing have actually been taking full ownership of that. Other than that, the rest of the charter, it is more or less generalizing CI signal to the rest of the release branches and expanding more collaboration with mostly the bug triage thing.
All right, so let's go to them. Jorge, if you can find the next time that we can get time on the SIG testing schedule, and then we'll let's knock this out in a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
So the idea is that take the handbook or like some of the details, some of the must-dos for this sub-project to SIG testing, get their feedback, and then.
So yeah, so my feeling is that the base case for this sub-project is something that we already do, the CI signal handbook, right? That should not be, I don't believe that's controversial, right? What's controversial is that we've like taken a brain dump to mean this is the entirety of the scope of the sub-project instead of ideas that we should be discussing whether or not we want as part of the sub-project. So let's do what we can to strip as many of the ideas that could potentially be controversial from this, and go with the goal of formation, right?
Okay.
Like formation is the first step.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Cool.
Got it.
All right. So next step. Oh, we were still on this.
Yeah, we still are on the items. So I'm gonna actually delete the next item for now because I don't think it's relevant based on what we just said. Drafting a summary or planning doc with values, goals, and priorities, blockers, risks, etc. I guess this came up in some chats, but yeah, we don't need to do that or think about that yet because we might want to have a different approach for getting this going. And then I think, yeah?
I'm just reading.
Okay.
I read with my mouth open, apparently. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, these were just kind of notes to provide context for the conversation where this was coming up, or one of the conversations. So I guess that one's done, CI signal. And then the next one was needing interlock with SIG scalability regarding upgrades to new Go versions.
So yeah, I'll shoot an email to them, I guess.
Okay.
As far as we're aware, they do testing on the tip of Go, so we should be in a position where they have already been testing the Go 115 release, but we haven't had any explicit update from them. So.
Okay. I think when we mentioned this, we were talking about improving the communication or alignment.
Yep.
So is there still an action that I would be useful in? Because we were both on this item. So is this something you want to handle alone? Or?
Yeah, no, I don't want to handle it
Okay.
alone. I think it's a team effort.
Okay.
But I don't concretely know what the next action is right now.
Okay.
So let me think on it a little bit, and we can chat on Slack.
Yeah, I also had a chat yesterday that's relevant to this topic, but I'll share it with you first, just because.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So I will just have that you're the owner to drop an email, basically to get things started on this, like getting conversation started. Is that the goal of the?
Started, restarted, something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. We'll call it restarted. All right, and then the final two items were about content. Related. Yeah, so basically how to present or promote your 3 hours of videos related to Go upgrades.
So there is a code walkthroughs or something playlist that is, I think it's maintained by Sig Contributor Experience. That would probably be a reasonable place for that. I believe they should both be up on our playlists though. So that should be a start. And yeah, I think Max has been reaching out. I need to get back to him about Go update blog post, maybe for the release. So I'll see if I kind of want to sit down with it for a bit now that, I mean, we've every Go update is slightly different. So now that I have a little bit more details than I did when I initially recorded those, I probably want to layer some more stuff on before I write a post. But yeah, I would say code walkthrough list and a blog post is probably sufficient. Then spamming the people on Twitter.
All right, so we have the code walkthrough list, the SIG release playlist, and then a potential blog post on the Go update. What would your first step be?
It's going to be documentation, honestly. I started a doc for doing the updates, and I want to make sure that is done before we hype, before any hype happens.
Okay.
And my mindset has changed a little bit about how I was going to write the doc. So now that the Bazel stuff I understand more of it than I did before. So.
Okay, so then you have documentation. I guess it's related to the actual upgrade process and how to do it. Okay.
Yep.
So finishing that and then dealing with the posting later.
Yeah.
Okay. And that could also be like provide the primary substance for your blog post.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure it's done first.
Cool. And the last item was Veronica's Bazel notes, like what to do with those. So I haven't heard back from her on this issue, so we just reach out and see what her plans are. But I think she was at that meeting and it came up.
Yeah, you're like, I've got notes. You're like, I need. Yeah. So we can reach out again.
Okay. So that was from the last meeting, and I missed a couple because of health searches and other things. Is there anything that anyone here believes is missing from the picture from the past few meetings. I can comb the notes from the agendas as well and see if anything is an action item that should be tracked. But is there anything anyone can think of that maybe didn't even make it onto the agenda notes?
I think there's kind of a question underway right now relative to these other things in CI signal and the changes in flight around establishing a more concrete criteria for code thaw.
Yes, we should do that.
Okay. That sounds like an issue that we should spin up.
Yeah,
Like just
yeah, this
go
should
and
probably be its own issue. Because we've played with the schedule this cycle. There were initially we had set a schedule and or proposed an update to the 119 schedule, and we kind of drifted towards a slightly different schedule, and then towards the end of the cycle we've drifted back essentially to what was initially proposed. So I think part of that tail end of where we're moving into the or soon be moving, we'll soon be moving into that KubeCon blackout period kind of part of the schedule. We should think deeply about what code thaw means, right? Because we've got these questions open that are when, how, what's, a good point, Tim, to mention the criteria, because I think we're playing it by ear this cycle. A lot of it has been, and the to an extent, that happens every cycle. We just make it look good, I guess. The release date that we publish is always a tentative release date, and we try to make sure that we say tentative in our announcements, because ultimately we don't know what can happen, and a lot of things do happen, and this is a cycle that a lot of things have happened. So I think with the Go 115 updates, with the kind of rockiness in CI, I think it's important to, and we were having the discussion yesterday with Aaron, I think that it's important to step back and take time to think about what we want to do, when we want to reopen, and make sure that it's not reopening for the sake of reopening, but reopening because it's the right time to do so. So that actually leads into the next item. Or wait, no, sorry. Lori, you want to jump in for the prior?
Sorry, the priorities.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Okay, yeah, got it. Sure, just an update, because a lot of folks here attended the prioritization breakouts that we had a few years ago. It just seems, but I guess around 4 to 6 weeks ago. I just wanted to let you know that there are efforts underway to organize the work that you had highlighted as top priorities. All of it will be shared with you. Basically, Steven, Tim, Jorge, and Sasha and I got together yesterday, and we'll get together one more time to take a sweep of the many different release team related backlogs. So a lot of the items that all of you who attended those breakouts were looking at, plus some other stuff that was here and there. We're basically trying to get rid of the noise and delegate items that the release team shouldn't be owning, or the release SIG, and then the results of that cleaned up backlog will give us a stronger footing to start triage partying, basically using the tool to run triage sessions so that we can take advantage of all of the benefits that it offers, like getting responses to contributors faster and having a nice, simple visual way to look at our backlog. So there's one thread of work around going through a lot of the CRUD plus many of the breakout topics again, but with that particular group of 4 individuals, and getting some structure around that. And then also some of the items that we covered in those breakouts are being dealt with in smaller batches. So one example is that we had a lot of enthusiasm around making the release team more asynchronous. And so we met, it was Tim and Nabrun and I met yesterday just to talk about inclusivity as a value in the release SIG and in the team. And as we were talking, the async team concept came up, because obviously we want to include all the members of the team regardless of time zone. And then from there, we also touched upon some of the onboarding needs that we have talked about in the past. So, how do we prep members of the release team when they join to have all the information that they need, where to find the information, how do the team members check in with their leads and other members of the team to give some input about how they think the process is going, how they're feeling about things, do they need anything? So we talked about a lot of these, and none of this was really new. It was all covered in past GitHub issues and some chats and some documents that, again, we've covered in prioritization sessions. Some of these items have been hanging around for a while. So basically the plan for this particular topic around inclusivity is to draft a plan for how we can address some of the key areas where we need to be inclusive. Again, like onboarding, the async time zone issue, and making sure people can attend meetings and figuring out the way to help them participate around the world. And then just overall collecting feedback about how inclusive we are. So what I'll do is I'll draft the notes from yesterday and some of the items from our priorities and the prioritization session spreadsheets, and put it all together and then share it with you. And then you can offer feedback. So this is just a way to say that, we will use all of the feedback about what you think is most important by setting up the starting point topics for which items should we start with first, or what would the most important, highest impact thing that we could do around, say, making teams more asynchronous, would then have a positive effect or a cascading effect on other things that we do. So that the goal is to structure this work so that we can actually think about things more in steps instead of all at once. You see 10 GitHub issues, which one do I do? Which one is most important? Which one's going to have the greatest impact in relation to those other 9 items? So we started with this one because there was a lot of interest in the async team topic. And then I've also reached out to David McKay because he was a former release team member and he wanted to get back into the SIG and start contributing. And I reached out to him. He was the person who actually filed the original GitHub issue that spurred a long discussion about how we should be more asynchronous. And he made some comments on my notes that I'll use to prepare the draft document for all of you. So it would be great to have an owner for that topic because it's hugely important. And then we might need other owners for the onboarding part and the feedback collection part.
Awesome.
Yeah, did anybody have any questions or comments about that, or is anything unclear? Does anybody want to actually contribute to anything that sounded interesting to you?
Maybe one thing I'd like to plant in people's minds as we go into KubeCon, it's going to be a virtual event. We're all going to be attending from random places, and it's a point in time where we're going to do something synchronously, but all remote as opposed to synchronously altogether. Think about your conference experience and see if there's anything that feels successfully collaborative or even anti-collaborative, and let's see if those could inform how we try to shift towards being more collaborative and productive in our asynchronous and synchronous meetings here.
Sounds great. Thank you, Lori, for working on that.
Thanks.
And shout out to David for opening that issue back in the day. It's been a few releases, so it's nice to see things moving along.
For sure.
Okay, last up. So there is a SIG testing meeting later today. The proposal that we had mentioned, policies to improve Kubernetes CI, will be discussed there. We don't have too much time to get into the nitty-gritty of this proposal, but I will share my screen. So some top-level concerns, cares, objectives to reduce the infrastructure CI failures. If you have pushed a PR to Kubernetes, or had to approve one, you have noticed that things have been slow. Things have been slow in terms of the tide queue, the amount of pre-submit failures, the fact that some of those failures have been pending timeout, are scheduling issues for PROW. So the overall proposal is around like, what can we do? What can we do? How can we do this? And the discussion that we were having yesterday between the SIG release leads and Aaron essentially amounted to like, what does code thaw look like, right? When should or shouldn't we do this? And the initial, the initial goal of elongating the 119 release cycle was to give people time to catch their breath, right? But also give some time to focus, instead of focusing on feature work, focusing on planning, right? Focusing on stability overall, right? So like the code freeze period was, the hope is that more people would be working on stability efforts. So coming, now that we're within it and considering exiting it, we're thinking, do we exit now? Or do we try to solve some of these problems while we're in a period where the code is moving a little slower? So take a look at this proposal. If you join the SIG Kubernetes SIG testing at googlegroups.com mailing list, you will get an invite for that meeting if you're interested in attending. I would love to see people who are interested in CI Signal jump into that meeting. I will be there. Tim, I'm not sure if you can also make that time slot.
I'm gonna try to, yeah. I've got to drop right now though, so.
Okay, later. But yes, it's important that we be a part of that conversation. So if you are available, Daniel, it would be great to have you there too, if you can pull it off. And that is that. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, just a few seconds to spare. So always lovely hanging with y'all. I will catch you, if you're on the release team, I'll catch you at one of the next meetings. If not, we'll catch you for the SIG. Yes, Lori.
One question from the chat. Is Adolfo saying he wants to join Carlos and
Let's
Jorge
on Slack.
Okay, got it.
All right, everyone. Take it easy.
Bye.